Hello.
Yo. What is up? What was that? A photo I saw of?
Oh,
Mr.
the
Maine?
photo of me and my buddy Chewbacca just chilling out.
You and
No big whoop.
Chewbacca?
I'll save that for pics. Talk about my little Disneyland adventure for
Oh,
season
that's
before.
right. You were talking about Hyperspace Mountain. Right on.
Mm-hmm. Beating Darth Vader, chilling with Chewbacca.
Yeah.
No big whoop. Just how I roll.
Oh yeah.
We live on DiamondClub.tv.
That's right.
We are.
Tweet this out.
All right, I've got my email pulled up. If you have anything to send over, when you. If not, that's cool.
I'm just sort of
I think I'm starting to get some Fallout fatigue.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm just getting into it. How far in the Brotherhood of Steel quest have you gotten?
Not at all.
Oh really?
Yeah, I haven't even been.
Uh,
Because I'm in another faction.
So did I followed the Nick Valentine quest?
Oh yeah, how do you like Nick?
Oh, he's great.
Good.
He's he's my jam, right? And so we went to, we had dog meat sniff a trail that led us to a guy in an underground bunker who I killed, and then there was a moment when I left the building that happened. Is it not the same moment that you had, or?
With
Yeah.
no, that's supposed to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you go up in there?
Up.
Oh.
No.
Oh, dude. Okay, so I'm far enough in the Brotherhood story
Oh, where
that I walk out and this thing's going across. I'm like, oh my god, and then all of a sudden my radio bleeps on and it's Paladin Dance saying, all Brotherhood of Steel, report right now. And you go back there and like, we're going up, and there's a vertibird and you're just up there now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. No,
and it was
crazy.
awesome. Like the whole game just pivoted on a dime. All of a sudden it became it became like BioShock because you're up in a crazy Zeppelin.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It was yeah. It's
Very cool.
yeah.
I feel like a time traveler from like 1892.
What is all this? Yeah, it actually. What's funny is I'm kind of glad that I'm not investing any time in the city building nonsense.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, unless there was a way to set it up to derive you passive income, then it's not worth it. Plus, also
There is, but it's an incredible amount of time you got to put in. You have to basically do 2 level perks worth. Give up 2 level perks for that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Also, like now that I have some decent weapons, and I think I was over leveled for the Nick Valentine quest, and so as a result, I ended up walking away from that quest with like 28 stim packs in the bank, and just tons of and to be honest, I think I did the whole thing with only a 44 Magnum that I had like 800 rounds for. So I ended up with just all my ammo maxed out on everything, and so. And then now I'm running around this Zeppelin just stealing all their ammo.
Yeah, once you doing the story stuff, you get a lot of really good resources, like stim packs and things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know, but I hate feeling guided down a track, but it just the game is so skewed to reward you both with XP and with stuff, where it's like it's so. You're dumb to actually try to Grand Theft Auto it, and you shouldn't open world it, and instead you should just accept it like a linear set of tasks.
Yeah, someone on Twitter the other day was like, Fallout, who he framed Fallout as a dungeon crawler rather than an RPG.
It is, and once you accept it as that, it's actually a really fun dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like there's some points where it's like the level design is not always the best.
No,
in some
I
of those
definitely
buildings.
wasted 20 minutes going the wrong way because it wasn't clear to me which way to go. Although it's one of those things like once you find it, it's like, oh, I definitely should have sat at the giant terminal with a spotlight on it after I got the key to this one terminal.
I had the exact same thing.
Oh, really?
I was in a raider building,
Yeah.
and the waypoint told me to go a different direction, but you had to go there through the elevator. But the elevator wasn't part of a waypoint,
Right.
so it was another.
So
big
it's just like
spotlight.
just get up there somehow.
Spotlight. There's an elevator. Use an elevator.
Yeah.
So it's very weird.
Hey, Bri,
Yo.
did I show you this yet?
Oh, you know what? I saw the teaser image of it. Boy, that looks beautiful. That's more of that same service, right?
It's Crate Space.
That's awesome.
Was able to do like full bleeds.
Wait, is that a new background? When did you get that?
He's
The
had
one in
that.
back of me.
Yeah.
I
Or-
switched to my eyesight, which has got a wider thing, and I used a camera tweak tool.
Ah.
And he got his new lights.
Yeah. No, it looks great. It looks it balances out the having you backlit. All three of us look classy as hell.
Yeah, I have more lights. Like this is all like I have a light here, but it's not doing anything. This is all monitor light, so I'm still. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
Trust me, we can relate.
Oh, I know. I just realized that like compared to you guys, I was kind of like dropping the ball.
Hey, question for Brian and Bryce. How do you guys charge your Lumix?
We have an AC adapter. It's an AC to DC thing that you just plug it in. And in fact,
It's a battery insert or
Yeah.
it's a battery insert with a. In fact, if you look on the side where your battery goes, you'll see a little rubber tab that pops out so
Yeah.
that there's room for the wire to come out. Did you? And in fact, I'm sure you've seen it, but by having the camera on the same circuit as all the lights, you press one button and everything turns on. So it's very binary. You don't have to remember all the things to set on and set off.
yeah, no, I'm that's really the only thing. We have it set up, it's feeding in. It's just
Did you?
matter-
Are you using it right now, or is this still the old one?
Oh god, no, this is the old one.
Man, the old one still looks good.
Yeah, it looks great.
The did you
Dog poop.
was that guy right about the autofocus thing? Turn on with flipping it to manual focus. Did that get rid of the square in the middle?
Yeah, it's really it was just a matter of me not understanding that setting was a knob setting, and it's like there's like a little manual focus switch on top of another knob.
Yeah.
Right. So that was that. But yeah, no, I mean it's we've got it ready to roll, and we figured out something that I probably should have realized far sooner about Wirecast. That you should like never ever monitor capture anything. Like only window capture everything because like it.
Because it takes more resources.
That was like the bane of literally anything that we wanted to do in terms of like,
Especially for gameplay and all that.
yeah, or Skype. Skype locked up and was pretty much unusable to us while we were trying to monitor capture stuff. But if you are window capturing everything, you can window capture till the cows come home.
Yeah, the monitor capture thing is your only choice if you want to get two elements. Like, for example, right now we have to monitor capture the monitor with you and Andrew on it because we can't just do a Skype capture because you're in separate windows.
But the solution would be to do two window captures, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't. You can capture different programs at different time.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we should try that.
Welcome to the Pretty Weird Things podcast, where we talk about how to make a
Break
podcast.
up.
It's called Before Things.
But
In 80 years' time, people will be on microphones doing podcasting, talking about, well, did we get the Glim VR bio software thing working right or not? Because we got to know the audience's emotional settings.
Well, that's the thing is as technology advances, it's not like things actually get faster. That's the big mistake that Star Trek makes is that it acts like when things get fast enough or when technology gets advanced enough, things just go lickety split. Instead, what happens is we raise the fidelity to match because we seem comfortable with this like 5 to 30 second waiting for things to happen for load times,
I remember doing the James Randi podcast back at the James Randi Foundation years ago, decades ago, and having like this one little cord going from, across that if you stepped on that, the whole thing went down. And
Oh my gosh.
God, it was just because the podcast didn't exist then,
Yeah.
I mean, that was even to call that a podcast would even be,
Anachronism.
future-proofing it a bit, right? Like it was a streaming radio. It was it was pre-podcast.
Yeah.
All right, can we do a voice check and then we will be good to go? Justin?
Hello, everybody. This is Justin Robert Young. I'm talking to you right now.
Andrew?
Hi, this is Andrew, and I'm talking to you in my totally original statement.
And Brian?
Ritty bitty bop booty boo. That's what I'm gonna name my fourth kid. Haha! I'll never have one.
Okay.
It's all the way charged.
Life finds a way, Brian.
God, I hope not.
All right, are we good to go?
We're ready to roll.
All right, take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood
Yo, beautiful people.
and Justin Robert Young.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Justin Robert Young.
Gentlemen, I want to direct your attention right away to an article that appeared in Boing Boing, which I think we've all had some fun interactions with those folks there. In some ways, they're kind of like a mirror universe version of us, more successful and,
Attractive.
yeah,
Taller.
yeah.
They can bench press
Proactive.
more.
More professional respect and prestige.
They're popular. And they're wildly popular.
Yeah.
Really, it's a funhouse mirror. I mean, like it's we are. If they woke up and saw themselves as us, they would blanch and recoil.
Yeah. True that. It's like the movie Mask, not the one like with Eric.
Yeah,
Stoltz.
sure. The one where he has the messed up face and he looks in the funhouse mirror and sees himself as a normal person.
That's what we see when we look at
Yeah.
Boing Boing.
By the way, that's all terribly offensive language I just used. A normal person. There is no such thing as normal.
Yeah, normie. So there was an article, very interesting. They had an essay, if you will, by I will go ahead and call him a grandmaster of science fiction, Kim Stanley Robinson, who Brian is
Oh yeah.
big fan of.
Yeah, I love me some Kim Stanley Robinson.
Well, Mr. Robinson, if I may, and I just Eddie
Here's
Murphy
to you, Kim Stanley Robinson.
Here's to you, Mr. Robinson. Has a title of this essay is "Our Generation Ships Will Sink," and goes on to explain basically the premise is we're stuck on Earth, folks, whether you like it or not, that we're not going to be able to, all the problems are in trying to go out to trying to colonize other planets, all the reasons why this won't work, and breaks it down into a variety of categories he describes as physical, biological, ecological, sociological, and psychological, which, that looks like 3 categories, but he gets put those into 5, so he's smarter than I am. And goes through a litany of all the problems from these and gets into just a number of the biological reasons and all that. I highly recommend you read it. I highly recommend you check it out and read his arguments to what this is. And basically, to sum it up, and probably not doing it justice to his points of view, though, is he gets into just all the physical problems when you're going to take like humans and try and put them elsewhere. And then he gets into, what happens when you're on these spaceships for extremely long times, blah, 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 etc. And again, highly check it out. Go read it. But I say nay.
Well, by the way, spoiler alert. That and I didn't mention it before because Aurora, his latest book, was my pick before, but I didn't want to talk about any of the plot points. That's pretty much the thesis of Aurora. He details in great, compelling detail all the reasons why stuff might not work. And in fact, at one point, there's a discussion about what he clearly finds to be a horrific idea. That there's a faction on Earth that just wants to keep on sending out arcs, figuring like we're dandelion seeds. Like, 99.99% of all of them, we're sending them to their death. But you never know, that 0.001% can take root and make something happen. And it's clearly, I don't know. I don't want to say like he's preaching or anything, but it's clear to the main characters that it's a grotesque idea for Earth to sit there on its mountain, sending people to their doom.
All right. Well, then where are you at on this, Bri? Your boy KSR is out here talking about how we're never going to leave Earth. You know, I thought you were on cool guy, we're going to live forever on different planets crew. We all have our airbrushed jackets with a rocket on it. Where you at?
I'm firmly in the camp of too dumb to know whether it'll work or not. But I mean, I do think we're gonna leave. He ain't saying we ain't gonna leave. He's saying we're gonna leave a lot, and it ain't gonna work out so well.
I read this, and I read it a couple times, and then I did some research on stuff, and I felt like I was being yelled at by somebody from the 1970s. in that the well, this thing won't work and this thing won't work. Like, yeah, I've never been a Generation Ship fan. Never been a Generation Ship. And I'm not a guy that thinks that we're going to develop warp drive either. But there are many, many other different scenarios that he kind of doesn't acknowledge. And I have a couple little nitpicks with his. He starts off, he just sort of hand waves away Mars, and let me find the
with good reason, because there's and we've talked about it before. What is it in the soil that means like it's just impossible to scrub out?
So his quote is for some people, he says, "Hey, this can't be done. Oh no, for some, this is a disturbing and deeply pessimistic conclusion to come to." Then when you combine that new judgment with the recently discovered problems concerning the plan to terraform and inhabit Mars, presence of percolates and absence of nitrogen, and we come to entirely new realization about our species that there is no planet B. Okay, let's back that up. We'll talk about percolates in a second.
Just to lay down a base coat, and before we get too far into this, when we talk about generation ships, right? When we talk about like what that is, just not for me because I understand.
Let's
explain
get
it for all the dummies out there.
Let's get to that in a second. Let's start with this first. Him saying, we ain't going to colonize Mars because it's not, it's not hospitable life. And he says, because there's percolates, which is true. And he says an absence of nitrogen, which was interesting to me because the latest research says that, not only, now we know there's nitrogen in the atmosphere, but that's not what we call fixed nitrogen, which means that nitrogen gas is not biologically available unless you do some sort of process, which actually we did invent a process for that, which is, underlines how agriculture works today. But we did find fixed nitrogen in the soil. There actually is nitrogen in the soil that could be used for crops. It could be used for this. So he says an absence of nitrogen, but that's not consistent with what the latest science is. So I'm already like, okay, this guy has an argument, and he's like, this is why we can't go there. There's no nitrogen. But well, wait, there is. Now, I don't know the degree or the amount, but we do know there's nitrogen, and the right kind, the fixed kind of nitrogen.
Well,
now,
okay. Well, there's two different questions. The question between colonizing versus terraforming, I think, are two very, very different questions. I think there's no doubt we can colonize Mars. We can dig out holes, and we could live there and keep stuff relatively clean. And it'd be nice because it would be easier to live on Mars than it would be, in free space, because you'd have gravity and you'd be able to, if you dig down, you could shield yourself from radiation, and you could import, good old fashioned American soil. But terraforming Mars, from what I understand, the perchlorates are very difficult to fix. Oh, all right, go for it.
We're getting to that.
All right.
First, the nitrogen. Okay. So he starts off with an argument and says there's an absence of nitrogen, and that's not consistent with what we know now. Now, he may have an idea of how much nitrogen he needs, he thinks there has to be for it to be workable, but so when I start when I start reading something that's criticizing we can't do it because of this, and this one thing, like, no, that's not the current state of science, I realize, oh, this is a polemic. This is not, this is a guy making a polemic. Why we can't, subtext, why we shouldn't.
No, not fair. Blowing a whistle. That's not fair to make up what you think he secretly means underneath.
He's pretty open about what he means if you read his research paper.
Again, I don't. Unless he says we shouldn't, then I'm not gonna ding him on saying we shouldn't.
I'm free to argue what I think the subtext is, and I think that when you create a straw man like that, it seems to serve a purpose which would tend to support his other points of view and things undo that. Okay, my point of view. That's all. My point is that he makes a statement about that which is not consistent with what we know. He says, "Here's the state of science. Here's this thing." Look, wait, why? What? Again, obviously, I'm trying to interpret this, but that's my interpretation of it. Percolates. Okay, percolates are basically
Is it percolates or perchlorates?
Perchlorates, pardon me. Perchlorates are basically these little salt-like dust type things that get into your bloodstream and affect your thyroid and can poison you. It's one of the leaps we had to make in watching the movie or reading the book The Martian, is that he probably would have died 2 weeks in from all that dust he was breathing in. And it's a very, very serious problem, because the amount of perchlorates that are on Mars, when you reach above 1% or so in the in your environment, and you breathe this in, your body starts to shut down. And if you're walking around and you have spacesuits and you're going into your habitat and all this, these things are extremely, extremely dangerous. These things are absolutely something that we're going to have to watch out for and figure out. How do you deal with this? Well, a lot of brilliant people have been dealing with this. Once we realized perchlorates were a problem, have been trying to come up with solutions. We don't know that these solutions will work. We don't know that any of this will work, but there are solutions to it. But there's also an advantage to perchlorates, and that is that if you break them down, you actually get oxygen. 60 kilograms of it gives you a day's worth of oxygen, and you can make a very simple thing, system to pull oxygen out of there, to pull fuel out of there. And there's a research paper that goes specifically into that. That's called a perchlorate on Mars, a chemical hazard and a resource for humans, which explains all the problems with it, why it's biologically hazardous to us, but then goes into well, here's the biological processes you can use to break it down. This is the bacterium. There's 50 species of bacteria that love perchlorates. And so there's ways in which you can all of a sudden turn this, which is one harmful, into something that is helpful. And if you're looking to the longer term thing that you talked about, Brian, difference between colonizing and terraforming, it becomes an advantage towards that. Nobody's going to be walking out on the surface of Mars for a century, but if you have these biologically available materials, they're there, then it increases your chances of doing that.
Yeah, and I think actually you make an extremely good point in that the big mistake Kim Stanley Robinson is making is that he's played. I do understand that there are big hurdles that are not popularly understood or in the popular consciousness at all, and I think it's smart, wise of him to bring them up. But I completely agree with you in that he's placed himself in the unfortunate position of arguing against mankind's intelligence 100 years from now. And it's like, if there's one thing I know, is that you don't bet against mankind, and especially you don't bet against mankind's intelligence 100 years from now.
Yeah, and man, we don't know. I mean, there may be other problems, and I'm one of these people who talks about radiation. I'm one of these people that said that Mars One was a horrible idea because they just hadn't thought it through and all that. And I'm not saying, hey, it's a cakewalk, guys, and things we may think will happen in 10 years might take 100 or 1,000. And I want to take us back 25,000 years ago to a cave in Greece, Theoptra Caves, or Theopetra Cave. Theopetra Cave is like the oldest cave where we found something very interesting there. This is 25,000 years ago, 23,000 years ago. It's the middle of the Ice Age. It's starting to it's very cold. People have been living in these caves for 100,000 years or more. Neanderthals before then, in an extremely inhospitable environment as it starts to get colder. We found something very special on the outside of the cave, and that's a wall. It's the oldest human-made, could have been Neanderthal, but the oldest, hominid-made structure we found. They built a wall to modify their environment to block the wind. And that's significant because up until then, there had been hominids for 1 million years. There had been Homo sapiens, there had been Neanderthals in Europe for 500,000 years that just sort of accepted the environment as it was. This is the way things were. It gets cold winds are blowing through there, and these people said, you know what? What if we blocked the wind?
Well, and it sounds like, that's kind of an eye-rollingly obvious thing to figure out, but I just reread How to Fly a Horse by Kevin Ashton, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It's so good, and one of the things he talks about is the fact that for 100,000 years, we carved out the same hand axe by rote instinct, as if we're birds making a nest without ever thinking of it. And then there was a fundamental shift the day one human being, biologically identical to us, just one day looked and says, I can make this better. That leap from nothing to something is utterly staggering, and it's what's led to the creative avalanche ever since then.
Just a beep, bop, boop, iPod.
Yeah. Hop, skip, and a jump.
You look at a timeline, but Justin, you bring up a very interesting point, is you look at a timeline of how slowly things changed, and then how quickly we went from, let's change the shape of this hand axe, let's change the shape of this, to all of a sudden, now here we are in 2015. our International Space Station has been continuously inhabited for 15 years.
That's pretty rad. That's pretty huge.
It's amazing. Now, granted, it needs a constant influx of supplies to keep that thing going. I mean, it's not self-sustaining in any sense of the word, the amount of energy and resources it takes to do that. But there is a curve there. It may be a 20-year curve. It may be a 1,000-year curve. And Robinson makes some points about like, hey, to have an ecosystem, Earth's not even a closed ecosystem, which is true. But our radical involvement of developing biotech and other things mean that we're learning things, and we're not going to have perfection. We're not going to have perfect systems, but we've been able to expand beyond Earth's orbit now or within Earth's or off the surface of the Earth for 15 years. Mm-hmm. We're going to be we're probably within the next 50 years, we're going to be sustaining systems around Mars. We're going to be sustaining systems probably on asteroids. And my argument is that it's not like we just go from Earth and we put generation ships and we send them to far-off systems. We leapfrog from one point to the next. And there are so many, as I've called them before, hard bodies. There's so many surfaces between here and the next star system to inhabit that it doesn't mean that we have to go from here to the next planet. Is that we can hollow out asteroids. We can take asteroids and spin them around and build these sort of gravity systems that have gravity. There are a lot of places that we can go before we even try to get to another thing. And it's not like we have this example of, we think of like these people, 20,000 years ago building a boat and like, all right, well, let's go colonize America. Well, no, let's go step by step by step by step. And there's so many there's more surface area outside of what's on planets than there is on planets, and ways to have gravity, et cetera, like that. So again, my whole thing with his argument was like, yeah, it's like a 1970s sort of point of view of.
Well, let's wrap up the Mars thing before we go on to the generation chips, because I would like to talk about that, because he has kind of a different take on that. Justin, what's the verdict? What's the verdict from the outside? Like Mars tomorrow, Mars 1,000 years from now, or Mars never?
Well, I mean, and my thought with all of this is, similar to what you said, Brian, where it's like, I'm sure that there were a lot of people that had, based on all available evidence, a lot of very realistic, by the numbers understanding of what they thought the new world was before, Western European, colonization happened, right? That, like, I think that if there's one thing that we know, is that the closer we get to problems, the more we understand them, and very often the more that advancement depends on us pivoting our understanding of what something is and applying what is true versus what we've learned, and so it's like it seems odd to me that we just kind of put the brakes on, like, well, anyway, Mars, whatever, like that happens now. Like, I feel like the more we understand Mars, the more that we send a manned mission there or further robot exploration, the more that we gather, like, then we will understand the problems far more than we do now, in comparison to, like, what Andrew was saying. Listen, if there's still reasonable educated minds that are like, okay, well, this perchlorates are death, or they're are fuel, to spend time there, like, then who knows? I mean, like, I don't know enough to say that's not right. I don't know enough to say that that's totally the right way to go.
You brought up a very good point too, which was, if you look back when at the birth of the United States and the problem with trying to split off from England as a colony, is that there was this question of, are we self-sufficient enough? Do we have enough resources here? And it seems like a weird thing to be asking here in 2015, but there was a time when, the first colonies, Jamestown, et cetera, the only way they were to survive was getting iron and other materials from Europe. And then when we had, chemicals for textiles and other things and seed stocks and stuff, the idea that we would they would have some sort of ability to be self-sustaining seemed ludicrous, because this was a continent that had been inhabited for 20,000 years, but the people had, apparently barely been able to, rise above a Neolithic existence and to have what we considered the modern European, contrivances or the modern luxuries seemed like it would never happen. And now you look at how, America has become leading industrial power and one of the biggest producers of machines and tools and everything for the rest of the world. It changed.
So here's an interesting question, and I don't really have a dog in this fight either way. I don't have an opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. That's a case where you have, we'll say in the geologic genetics, basically, you have virtually identical spaces in the new world and in the old world, chemically, atmospherically, zoologically, botanically, virtually identical. And now we're looking at a substantial difference to Mars. And now I agree with you that it's a big difference, but who knows what we'll be able to do either 100 years or 1,000 years from now. Here's the question: is there an environment that's too far that you throw your hands up and say mankind will never be able to tackle that? Like colonizing Venus. Is that so far? Like, is there anything that makes you flinch and say no, that'll never ever happen?
Well, I guess that gets into sort of another aspect of what his argument is that he kind of talked about Homo sapien and not Homo sapien plus,
yeah.
and that's a thing that we have in sci-fi these weird, bizarre examples of I'm going to have 4 arms and this or whatever, but I look at it more as as biotech develops and nanotech develops, and not as fast as we probably think it will happen, but as these things progress and we're able to hack our immune systems and our biological systems, a lot of things become possible. When we think about the idea of the body of just being a thing that protects the consciousness, what does that mean? I mean, Venus is, ridiculously hot. It is stupendously hot. You're trying to colonize there is effectively,
Well, and that's the thing, is because what it gets down to is it's not a question of whether or not it's possible. The question is whether or not it's profitable, and it will very likely never ever be profitable to try to terraform or colonize Venus.
Yeah, I can't see in the world which we can understand or sort of think that we see beyond the horizon where that's practical. But, talking to those people in Theopetra Cave and trying to explain what we're doing now, where we live, what we live in, is utterly alien, an utterly alien concept to them.
So let's do this. And by the way, spoiler alert, the answer I think to all of this is that mankind ain't going anywhere. It's mankind's children in the form of conscious carrying robots that will expand throughout the universe. But let's talk about the generational shifts and whether or not and the problems inherent in that.
Mm-hmm. I think generation ships are a dumb idea. I think that
again, let's explain. I mean, I understand, but just for anybody who doesn't, can we again just get an explanation of what a generation ship is?
It's space arcs. It's you build yourself a 3-mile long tube that spins around about the size of Manhattan Island, or you, in the case of Aurora, you get yourself a double-ringed, segmented, spinning. Looks like the space station from 2001 spinning with an ion drive. It's going to take 3 or 4 generations. It spends half its time accelerating up, at close to a G, and then the rest of the time spinning around and decelerating at about a G, so that your great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be the ones to colonize another world when you get down there. Is that about right?
Yeah, to me, it's an old idea that just it belongs in the middle of the 20th century. It's not how we would get there, what we would do. That's my opinion.
You think what we would hypersleep it? Or
no, I don't think. I think that by the time we're looking to try to get to other star systems and stuff like that, why send all that matter? Send a 2-meter long send a 2-meter long probe it can build an antenna array and some nanobots on there, and then just transmit copies of ourselves or whatever. Teleportation's the future of it, or a form, facsimiles or whatever you want to call it. That's how we're going to get there.
So we're going to. Okay, so and just so we understand, right? The idea is that we are going to far-flung other star systems, right? And that's what the goal is, to colonize places that are inconceivably far.
Yeah,
from
you take a star system. Let's say there was a habitable one we thought 10 light years away. Problem is we're nowhere near being able to build a spaceship that could go approach even the speed of light and take advantage of relativistic effects, which means the time would pass very quickly. Is that it might take us 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years to get something with technology we can conceive of today to there. And so what we would do is we'd build this big, huge spaceship, ship it there slowly, and the idea that, as Brian pointed, the great-great-grandchildren of the people on board there are going to, arrive at the planet. Or you freeze a bunch of embryos and you have robots raise them or whatever. And both of these, to me are, these are ideas of the era of Aldous Huxley. This is not how I would do this today.
These are the equivalent of Jules Verne saying, you fire us off to the moon in a cannon.
Well, it just seems so obsessed with our own sacrifice and mortality and everything, and it just seems like it is far more a poetic concept, right? That we, the brave, will sacrifice ourselves, and literally, the phoenix from our ashes will be our children that will colonize this new world. Where it's like, we generally, right, when people want to explore, or at least historically, they kind of want to be the ones that hit land, right? Like, It just sort of seems like odd that, like, yes, no, we will create these huge machines and we will investigate far-flung worlds to the point where we understand that when we get there, it just won't be a jalopy that we won't be able to colonize. But then we will stop developing when it comes to hypersleep or figuring out a way that life preservation can exist in a manner for which we will be the ones that get there. It just seems like an odd place where it's like, okay, these things will advance to a certain point, but these other things will not, because that's where the poetry comes in. The poetry is in the sacrifice.
That's the thing, is I think our culture and our genetics will evolve even faster than our ability to throw, metal through space. And by the time we get that ability, our interests and the way we view our place in the universe will be fundamentally different.
Well, and when we talk about throwing metal through space, though, too, is that we keep imagining these, spaceships like Starship Enterprise and stuff like that. When, if we wanted to build, an accelerator that was going to shoot things the size of an iPod towards star systems, they'll get there a hell of a lot faster. We would, within our own lifetime.
Well, and that's the thing is the idea. We will sooner be able to figure out how to reconstitute a human body from scratch using nanobots than we will figure out a convenient way to get, faster than 20 Gs and keep a human body happy and healthy inside a jelly suspension or whatever.
Exactly.
And also, like, there is some weird, troubling subtext to, like, I decide that I'm going to go colonize a thing, and I will bravely sacrifice my life so that can be the case. Now, my sons and daughters, oops, sorry, guys, you get to live on a spaceship. But don't worry, your kids will get to colonize a thing that we're pretty sure is pretty rad.
Well, that's a theme that's been used in science fiction, because some writers have stumbled upon the idea, like, what if you're the kid born on a generation ship? Like, that's why we're not going to do them.
Well, okay, so real quick, we're getting into spoiler territory for Aurora. So if you have the slightest interest in anything we've talked about, allow me to recommend that you pause and resume later in the program, because in order to talk about Kim Stanley Robinson's idea, we have to talk about plot points in Aurora. Pause now. I highly, highly recommend it. But of course, what you're describing is exactly what happens in Aurora. It's the 7th or 8th generation, and somebody wakes up, and they are the generation that is making it to the planet. And one of the big things they discover, much to their dismay, is that it turns out any planet capable of sustaining human compatible biology has already started the precursors to it. And in doing so, it essentially is made of poison, is what he says. And so, and yes, again, we can project in the future and say, well, if we do it in some other fantasy, we'll be able to figure it out. But, I could picture a I could picture a sufficiently advanced and wealthy society that they would try a generation ship. And in the event that we are in one of these scenarios where, 100 or 200 or 300 generation ships have gone out, what happens when you get there and you find out that all of the planets, if they have water, then they have precursors that can infect your body?
I'm just wondering, what monsters are sending generation ships to planets that we couldn't send much faster moving probes to before?
I mean, you could reject the entire premise, but within the premise,
I'm just asking, what society thinks this is a good idea?
Dude, trust me, a society that is accustomed to government spending, that's the one. Where it's like like nobody wants probes, people want human boats. See, we're gonna send them all out.
I just the idea that before we send this $10 trillion thing there, that we can build a probe like we do now, like our NASA does, every program does now. Like it seems to me like a writer's convenience to sort of say, we could probe it, but we won't because I won't be able to tell the story I want to tell.
As a matter of fact, I could actually buy that defense completely because if you send a probe, you won't get an answer for literally 100 to 200 years. And let's say you're facing a very real major climactic change that could wipe people out, or that you're worried that you're in too small of a petri dish where all our eggs are in one galactic basket. I can totally see 3 or 4 generations of let's sail to the stars. We can't afford to wait.
I mean, yeah, we can create a situation to me, but it seems to me like absolutely we can. To me that it's sort of. It ignores the point that you can build a smaller probe that can go there 10 times faster and give you that information, though. And that's and a lot of these things, and we didn't know. And that's a lot of science fiction things we don't know until we showed up. And I'm like, well, you can make a really small probe that can get there a lot faster. And it's like as a writer trying to avoid the use of cell phones because you're like, well, that'll ruin my plot if they have a cell phone too convenient.
How big is the generation ship in Aurora? Like how many people?
Jeepers. I want to say maybe 2,000. No, wait, maybe 30,000. I remember thinking it was like a small town.
Because I can buy it as one, a family, right? Or a block or some doomsday prepper, kind of in a world in which this is slightly cheaper, right? Or is something that can be done yet isn't done because of moral obligations. I can definitely buy the idea that somebody would want to do it, right? I don't know the idea of it being a governmental or political we need to marshal our resources and we need to spend on this big one thing, I think is problematic.
Well, the book doesn't go into any of that, because it's already over with. But...
I'm not talking about the book necessarily, but just in general, the idea of generation ships, as a concept. I think it's and to echo what Andrew was saying earlier, it just very much seems like it bears the hallmarks of kind of where we were thinking 30 years ago.
I think that might be the point of it because it's the book is really an indictment of the past 30 years of science fiction, including his own books. He spends a half chapter explaining why his own seminal work, the Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars trilogy, is not possible and breaks it all down. And I think that's what he was going for with Aurora, where he wants to shut down this other trope of science fiction that we've had for so long.
Interesting.
In his face.
Well, yeah. And again, I don't think he's saying we have a pressing problem in that too many people are trying to build an ark today. I think similar to one of my favorite Star Wars books was this moment. I think it was one of the second Timothy Zahn books where there was 2 books back to back, and there's this conversation where Mara Jade is talking to Luke Skywalker, and she's just going off for half a chapter about how irresponsibly he's been using the Force and how, you can't do that and blah, blah, blah. And about halfway through, I realized that this is not Mara Jade talking to Luke Skywalker. This is Timothy Zahn talking to all the other authors of Star Wars books who have Luke Skywalker using his Force as a catch-all Deus Ex Machina for everything. So that's the way I would read all this with Kim Stanley Robinson.
Well, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, if you want to see humanity survive, We believe that probably becoming a multi-planet, multi-environment species, let's be honest, we live on asteroids, is imperative to do that. In order for that to happen, you need the sober voices of reason and us telling you why we need to move towards this.
And if not us, then at least artificially intelligent agents that are exactly like us. And guess what? Those don't come cheap. We have a rainy day fund. We're hiring programmers, futurologists. We're going to hire Kim Stanley Robinson to tell us why it can't be done. And we need your cash is what we're saying.
By hiring, we're moving up our invisible board of priorities. They're not lowering, they're hiring. Eventually we'll spend money on it. But right now we are raising that war chest at patreon.com/weirdthings.
Yeah, man. Dude, this show, I don't know about you guys, but we're coming up on almost a year since we started taking money for it. I think the show's gotten a hell of a lot better. Certainly has gotten a hell of a lot more regular and almost on time.
Absolutely. I'm super excited by everything that we've been able to do, thanks to everybody's support. So thank you again, everybody. If you like the show, hit us up, patreon.com/weirdthings.
So I want to take you back in time to, I don't know, when did we work on the G-Force show?
Just 2008. Because I remember G4 Underground came out. No, it must have been because I met Justin in 2008, and then I started doing BB Live Show in 2009, and that was in those early days. I remember Justin was plugging G4 Underground.
So we did a series with my producing partner, Mary Jarris. I co-executive produced and created a series of documentaries, and Justin came in and worked with us on this as associate producer, and it was a bunch of these, documentaries, mini docs on cool tech stuff, things like that. We had, Silicon Valley fight clubs where guys would bash each other over the heads with keyboards. We did things on, the burgeoning, online independent porn, and people using, stimulants and all that for doing competition gaming, et cetera, and all that. I went to G4 with a list of topics that I wanted to talk. G4, by the way, for some of your listeners going, what's that? Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore.
There used to be this network called Tech TV. There was this other entity called Comcast. It's a whole big thing.
Yeah, anyhow. I went with him with a list of topics, and I had one subject that I said, this is really what, I think we should talk about. So, would you like to talk about Steve Jobs before Steve Jobs became big? I'm like, well, yeah. I said, well, I've got the guy to talk about. We should do a profile on this guy because he's got his hands in everything.
Oh my gosh, is this who I think it is? Back in 2009?
Who? They're like, who? I'm like, no, really. And I got Mary. Mary was on board with this. We're like, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, he'd be great. I'm like, yeah, this guy's like Tony Stark. This guy's amazing. We should do this. G4's like, nah, we don't really think it's that much coverage. And that, of course, was Elon Musk.
Wow.
I tried my
just so y'all know how OG we are about our Elon fanboyism.
Yeah, it was. We tried very, very, very hard to get them on that, but they didn't really see him as being the figure that he is. And flash forward later, the guy actually was in an Iron Man movie, and this week was kind of a big deal because we had a couple things. One, it looks like SpaceX is going to be the only bidder for this Air Force contract. Two, NASA just gave them the official contract to ferry astronauts in 2017 to the International Space Station.
Holy cow, that's huge.
Yes, there's actually NASA has bought tickets on board a SpaceX rocket, as well as Boeing's project, the Boeing Starcraft, forget what it's called. So we don't know who will be first, but we have the exciting part is that there are two private companies that within a 2 years frame of time plan to send astronauts to the International Space Station. That is an exciting time. But more important is that Elon Musk reached this cultural breakthrough because he was on an episode of Big Bang Theory.
Oh, that means my parents might know who Elon Musk is finally. Did he appear as himself?
Yes. So we don't have the audio. Do we have the audio? Do you want to play the audio?
Yeah.
Was that an orgasm joke?
Yes.
What are you doing here?
I'm washing dishes.
Well,
I
We're
was
in
on
a
the
food
turkey
kitchen
line,
at a homeless
but I
shelter.
got demoted for being too generous with the gravy.
oh man, what an honor to meet you. I'm such a fan of Tesla and SpaceX, all your companies. Howard Wolowitz, Caltech.
Nice to meet you, Howard. It feels great to come down here and help the less fortunate, huh?
Oh, yeah. There's nothing better than helping people. Which is something I realized when I was viewing Earth from the deck of the International Space Station, where I spent 2 months as a payload specialist, a job I was qualified for because I'm an MIT-trained engineer.
And I thought I ladled the gravy on thick.
Anyhow, we don't have to go all the way through.
Yeah, I was about to say we're just gonna watch the episode.
But I mean that's the point we're going where, 20 years ago, hey, this guy wants us to go to Mars. That's great. Tell me what kind of medications he's on. See if we need to up it. Because he's a private guy. He's gonna help us find to be.
I mean, yeah, if I remember correctly, one of the original pitches for G4 Underground was about the private space race, and it was going to focus on Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and basically the idea that like, oh look, because even part of that initial premise, even from us, was like, look at these guys, they're doing this stuff, like, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but the story here is that the money being spent by these people as an investment for this kind of advancement. And now it's like it's a punchline. I mean, like, Big Bang Theory and CBS in general, that their style of comedy is based on the idea that these people, and therefore when they show up, it's funny that they're acting against character, right? So Elon Musk, the guy who states plainly he wants to die on Mars, is the humble guy in the food kitchen who's like, doesn't it feel great, to just be a normal guy and give back? Like that there's this like, oh, wow, he's taking time away from these grand things to look at this small thing. That's part of the comedy. It's insane how far we've come. That before it was like, yeah, I don't know, fringe stuff. People won't get it on a hip, young, a science and tech leaning network. Like, oh, I don't know, people will understand it, which goes in to tell you how much the people that ran that network knew their audience. But is now like, yeah, it's mainstream. It is. People are laughing about it at 8 p.m. on Monday.
So when Elon Musk is a double curious character because, the longer he continues to work his progress in his projects, the more we track all of his successes. And there is no shortage of them. Some of the most revolutionary successes in technology and business development and increasing the quality of life for humanity in my lifetime are responsible by Elon Musk. But I wonder, I would love to spend some time, and I'm not saying now has to be that time, but I would love to hear about his failures because, I mean, he's a dude and he makes bets, and bets don't always come up, winners. And granted, he wins a lot, which is why he's a very, very wealthy dude, and his wins are important to all of humanity. But I don't know. I would love to get a little more humanization and hear, but I would love to hear what ideas just didn't pan out,
Well, he talks a bit about that, about what they thought would work and what wouldn't work. And, you look at the struggles of Tesla and how that company almost didn't survive. And in the middle of that struggle, he's borrowing money from friends to keep going because he's got everything bet on that. And SpaceX, they lost a rocket this summer. If they'd lost that rocket earlier on after they had like 3 other blowups when they're testing their rocket engines, there would be no SpaceX. And the conversation about space right now would be very, very, very different. There's the book by Ashley Vance, which I have not read yet, which goes into a big biography of Elon Musk. It's supposed to go into a lot of that. And, we see stuff like that, that they're trying to pull off another rocket launch this December and hope that it works, because if that explodes, I think SpaceX will survive, but it'll be a very tarnished image that'll take a while to recover from.
Well, and I think part of it is, for people who have followed, Elon Musk for a long time, there have been a ton of failures within that success, right? And if there's anything that makes him a strong, leader, if you want to give him credit, part of it is he has understood where to cut bait and where to reinvest, and he has reinvested aggressively. And there's elements, when you compare an Elon Musk to a Steve Jobs, that's kind of where I think in the second Apple stint for Steve Jobs that he was really smart about was understanding what was working, what was not working, and betting heavily on the stuff that worked. If there's one of the great books, maybe this will be my pick, but the perfect thing about the creation of the iPod, it was part of what ascended Tim Cook from amongst the other executives to kind of one of the big executives was his sourcing of parts, and the fact that like they bet gigantic on the iPod because they didn't want it to, they wanted to be able to sell a lot of them, and that's what made Apple and the iPod go from Apple became far more than just a computer manufacturer in a very short amount of time because they bet so heavily, and yet not as heavily on some other verticals that didn't wind up panning out, and probably not as big on stuff like web development, which they're still bad at.
I have one more topic. We brought up earlier the discussion of who would try to do generation ships or whatever, and I explained why I thought it was just an absurd idea, etc. Who would try to embark upon that kind of social engineering? Don't have an answer to that, but I do have an article, by the way, that's a totally different segue. China, social credit. Beijing sets up huge system. I don't know if you've been following this, but this is from the BBC. This is sort of kind of a news everywhere. In most countries, the existence of a credit system isn't controversial. Past financial information is used to predict whether individuals will pay their mortgages or a credit card bill in the future. But China is taking the whole concept a few steps further. The Chinese government is building an omnipotent social credit system that is meant to rate each citizen's trustworthiness. And what is it, omnipotent, or did they mean omniscient? Either way, by 2020,
it can actually do anything. It can levitate things.
Yeah, they said, omnipotent, but I think they may have been. But anyway, by 2020, everyone in China will be enrolled in a vast national database that will compile fiscal and government information, including minor traffic violations, and distills it into a single number ranking each citizen. So this could encompass everything from, your credit ratings, whatever. They already have systems in place that Alibaba has called Sesame, where if you have a high enough rating, you don't need to put down a deposit when you rent a car. But this is also a system that will incorporate, what are you saying on social media? What is your trustworthiness? How are you, there's this concept in China of harmony. Are you helping with harmony? Or are you disrupting harmony?
Man, I am all over the map in my visceral reaction to this, because on the one hand, I absolutely loathe the fact that this is a government entity deciding to put a permanent brand on someone, on their trustworthiness. I mean, what business is it of is theirs? However, having
Brian, explain your hesitation about it as John Stossel.
I'm saving that for Tuesday night. But on the flip side, having dealt with Alibaba, that's real useful to have a reputation score for all those guys. When you hop on the chat and when you know that there are companies that will do things like a friend of mine had an electronic gizmo that he asked, is it possible to get this made in black? And the text came back, like, yeah, no, here, look, we'll whip one up. And the very next day, hours later, they show him a working model of it, and it's in black. He's like, well, hell yeah, I'll take 1,000 of them. He gets them. They just spray painted them all. They're all white plastic, just spray painted black, and it looks good enough.
Brian, that's a great point of why, and that's one of the arguments being made, is for dealing with trading. China's got over 1 billion people. How do you trust people within there? And so that's the pro argument, is that when, particularly an economic system like that, the question goes into what happens when the entity controlling it's the government and it's the Communist Party, and they get to affect your score because, you said some things, on social media about the traffic, and we've been doing our best to try to fix that, and we don't think that was very helpful.
Yeah. What was the religious group that they tried to scrub off the internet? Falun Gong or something like that?
Yeah, Falun Gong, yeah.
This brings me to the second part. So let's picture another version where it's like there's 2 or 3 competing entities, and yet here in the United States, not using the government, that startup people tried to create essentially the same thing, and they were crushed. They were pilloried in the court of public PEEPLE.
Which also we don't know how close to vaporware that really was.
But we do know that the idea of it was resoundingly rejected by the populace. It was pitched as Yelp for people, basically.
Well, and that gets into it's like Yelp. I don't think there should be a Yelp for people. I think Yelp is great, but that becomes into this, the potential we see already. The potential harm that Yelp has is a great value, but is also going to be very damaging. You see somebody who says something unpopular, and you watch their Yelp rating plummet because of people who never went there don't like this person. When you imagine what would happen to the Yelp for people, and how it sounds to me horrible.
Now,
horrible.
So, all right, can I make and not to be Alex Jones, but let me make this slippery slope argument of like, okay, so now we have a government repository wherein we keep, all right, well, congratulations, you are high enough in reputation. You can travel back and forth to the United States as much as you want. We are not going to worry about that. You are a good representation of Chinese culture. The lower ones, once you start having what is universally thought of as a quantitative score of a human being, then, and this is where I'm making the logical leap, what do we do with these people? Should we be punishing them? Should we be
charging more for them, or
should they have to pay more for some of these permits? Is there a way that we can rehabilitate them? Or, and now I'm making another leap in logic, is this something where maybe it'd be better if they don't exist anymore? Maybe.
Jesus. or maybe
type in Hong Kong bookstore into Google News and see what happens.
Okay, and in the meantime, let's say a less extreme jump is not that we're going to murder them, but there was a time when without irony, during the eugenics movement, we would sterilize people of lower races, as they were called.
In Hong Kong, a publisher of books that were critical of the Chinese powers, of influential politicians, the people running the store, they vanished.
Okay. Do we think they were actually taken to prison or what?
Yes, Brian.
Well, no. I mean, it could very well be just like, hey, shut down your business, go find another job, and they could have been pressured into that. It's not, but I guess that's true. That's possible too. So I'm not going to say, whether it's good or bad or what the solution is, but I will say here's why I think this is inevitable. Is it all comes down to Dunbar's number. I think that we are built to want to. We have outgrown our capacity to grasp other people's reputations. We can't keep track of more than 150, 250 people. And so as a result, we all need that cybernetic augmentation that allows us to make a snap judgment about someone so we don't waste our time.
I mean, a question is, do we have it already? I just bought this Lumix camera, which I'm not broadcasting with, but I will be soon as I get the AC charger, off eBay. So there was the camera that I needed on eBay. I have no idea who this person is. However, I've seen that they have a long list of successful transactions with a lot of people saying very nice things about how professionally they handled everything. And they're based on a online gathered metric in a moment of need. I was given assurances to make that deal and PayPal over money before without having seen this person. I'll never see this person in my life, right?
Yeah.
So is it happening? And now the question is, do we need it better? Do we need it more central? Do we need a combination? Did I need to know how if this person has yelled and screamed about politics on Twitter? Do I need to have the fact that he's gotten a bunch of parking tickets, or should he think twice about accepting the money from me because I've gotten maybe 3 dozen parking tickets in the last 3 years of traveling around the country? Like, should that be factored in? Does that make us smarter or dumber?
I mean, that's the big question, right? Because what if I told you that, hey, we pulled the criminal report on this guy, and he's a rapist and might have been involved in a drunk driving manslaughter? Would that affect your decision to buy a camera from him?
Likely. If I were looking at two different cameras, I would probably say, well, what about this other guy? It's like, oh, no, he's a Sunday school teacher, and he just had a successful first date with another school teacher. I would be like, oh, okay, well, he seems like somebody that I want to buy the camera from. Now, maybe that other dude is a creep. I mean, I guess the part of what makes what I think one of the defining challenges of our age is now we are in the infinitely calculatable society. Everything's recorded. Everything, has an ability for us to look at it. And one of the greatest frustrations in my life are people who believe that all numbers are good numbers. And that by looking at certain things and focusing on certain pieces of data, that makes them smarter. When ultimately, I very much believe that it can very easily make us dumber. Like it is, that generations from now, we will not just think it's like, oh, well, here's a number. I found a number. That's a great number. I'm going to make decisions based on that number. It's like, no.
Well, the problem is, as more stuff is recorded, it becomes increasingly easy and possible to turn anyone into a caricature. And we're already seeing that in some of the political debates that we see. It's all you have to do.
That's always happened.
Well, I know, but again, yes, it's always happened, but we haven't had thousands of speeches available on call and algorithms that are able to look for racially divisive combinations of words that can be taken out of context in order to portray someone as a, as this. And in fact, I've talked about this before. I'm waiting for the day when engines crawl through public crowd shots, and then so that 20 years from now, a presidential candidate, some robot's going to spot him in the background of a Occupy Wall Street rally, and it's going to come up, and he won't be able to deny that he was there because the facial recognition was able to break it down and see it. So it's like it's already happening. We're just waiting for the technology to catch up with the point where it can be thrown in our faces.
I think, I'm all for reputation systems within specific systems. And what the question we had, 15 years ago with the rise of Amazon and eBay was, as they were based on reviews, was this, well, how do we know they're not going to be gamed? Well, of course they're going to be gamed. Of course people are going to try to do that. And what became incumbent upon or beholden upon Amazon and eBay was to say, yeah, you know what our job is? Our job is to make sure that they're, to minimize how much they're being gamed, because we're really selling on reputation. That's what we're selling on. And they had an accountability thing, because once we didn't trust them, we would go elsewhere. When it's the government doing that, guess what happens when they leak, my brother's a federal employee. Guess what? They leaked all of the contact information from everybody that he contacted with, all my information, everything. All that got out because somebody didn't care, and somebody's responsibility, to make this secure, they didn't do it. There's no repercussion. The people that did this, we don't know who the people were who were stupid about how they maintain these records. They're never going to find fault or blame. Every time something like that happens to a company, there's a reputational cost. We see that all the time, like credit cards get leaked, things like that. That becomes problematic and scary, and that's the scariest thing to me. It's one thing. We found that, yeah, companies care a lot on doing this. Not that I trust them. I don't trust Facebook. I don't trust Amazon. I don't trust any of them. I trust them to do what they do.
Yeah, you trust them to look out for their own interests and to recognize that it's damaging if they get a bad reputation.
Exactly. And so we've seen how these systems have evolved very, very quickly and become very, very good. Amazon, like I tell people, like, hey, if you like something I do, say something nice on Amazon. I won't tell people how to review it or what to say, because Amazon's got spiders crawling through the webs trying to see who who your friends are. And if they see that a bunch of reviews belong to email addresses that are all on the same list of your family members on some family picnic thing or whatever like that, for all I know, like I've heard stories of, like, yeah, they'll say, sorry, we're not counting these and stuff, because that's how much they're investing in it. But
understand, like, they are fighting against moneyed interests. There are people that will, under the table, promise, hey, pay us $10,000. We're going to buy a whole bunch of copies of your book. Don't worry, we have a network of stooges, across the nation that we've identified which bookstores they count and so on. I mean, that's straight up gaming, and that does harm, the New York Times bestseller list when they become victims of it.
But on the other side of it, you have, the Europe idea of the right to be forgotten, which is this, law they passed, which says that, you have this right to ask Google not to link to articles or things like that that are critical of you after a certain period of time, which to me is that's the opposite of free speech. That to me that's a scary idea. I'm against the idea of some central repository for the government, giving you some sort of arbitrary rating, which, I don't care who you're voting for. You don't want them having power over that.
Well, and keep in mind, like all of America, everyone who lives here is the descendant, except for one group who owned it before they got given poison blankets. But all of us come from a generation of dissidents.
Didn't happen.
Oh, really? That didn't happen? Wait, is that fake? The smallpox blankets thing?
Yeah, it was somebody said we should try this, but there's
okay.
no.
All right. Regardless, what I'm saying is, unless you're Native American, you are here because you had dissidents in your family lineage. You had contrarian blood in you, and so as a result, like in England, culturally, it's the definition of libel is like if you can't prove it's true, you can't say it. Whereas in America, it's like you got to prove me a liar. The reverse. The burden of proof is completely flipped upside down.
Yeah. So there you have it, guys.
You want to do picks?
Yes, picks. Yes.
Can I go first?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, go.
All right, I've got a pick for you all. It's an unconventional pick. May not be realistic, but I don't care.
What?
I don't care what you're doing right now.
Okay.
I don't care what your job is, what your family obligations are, whatever they are. What you need to do is you need to get into a car or get in an airplane and you need to fly to Disneyland and go to Season of the Force. What is this? It is a celebration of Star Wars at Disneyland. Now, what does this mean? I heard they're doing Season of the Force. Their innovations begin to have some maybe they're going to have some cool stuff there at character meets or whatever like that. I'm like, all right, let me go check this out. I went by myself, finished writing, sitting here saying, you know what? I got a Disney pass. Why don't I go to Disneyland and see what it's about? What happened? Oh, I don't know. I met Chewbacca. All right. I got a photo with me and Chewbacca chilling out, right? And what else is cool about that? Here, for all of our video listeners.
Proof. Pixar didn't happen. There it is.
I'm with Chewbacca right there. And let me tell you what, and then I'm with Darth Vader. Meeting Chewbacca, my buddy Adam Franklin put it best. He says, you go meet Chewbacca, he puts his arm around you and hugs you. And for that moment, you both forget you're grown men.
That's amazing.
I was the guy who played Chewbacca was amazing. He was just puts his arm around me. It was like a Wookiee. I got hugged by a Wookiee. Don't tell me it was some guy in a mask. It wasn't.
How did they do the sound effects? Was it electronically recorded with the?
No, he didn't actually make any noise.
Oh, okay.
So, but Chewbacca, he's just the guy. The manners are perfect. He puts his arm. I'm like, it's Chewbacca. I'm being, hugged by Chewbacca. It was a great moment. And then I'm like, you know what? Darth Vader's over there. Why don't I go say hello to Darth Vader? I go through the line. I walk down there, and now all of a sudden, Chewbacca, you met him on Yavin. It was the temple on Yavin. Darth Vader's in this Imperial base. You walk down the corridor. All the Disney employees are dressed like members of the Empire. And there's Darth Vader, right? And I walk in there, and I'm looking. You hand the guy the camera, hand one of the attendants my camera, and there's this voice, Darth Vader voice, is saying something. I'm not really paying attention. I'm handing this person my camera, and then I'm kind of mugging for a photo. And one of the Disney people says, "Lord Vader is addressing you." oh! And I turn, and Darth Vader says to me, "Your path to the dark side is almost complete, but your training still needs to be continued." And he's telling me about turning to the dark side and what I need to do, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then it's time to do the pose, and that's what he has you do. You're doing the Force pose right there. So
that's amazing.
So I met that, and then you're like, what else is there? All right, you like Space Mountain? Do you guys like Space Mountain?
Sure.
Imagine when you were first time you're on Space Mountain, you ever pretend you're in an X-Wing on Space Mountain?
Sure.
Imagine
I'm an American.
If you didn't have to make believe anymore.
What?
Right? So it's no longer Space Mountain right now. It's Hyperspace Mountain, right? You walk in there, you go through the line, there's Star Wars music, playing all over Tomorrowland. But when you get onto Hyperspace Mountain, you know, the video, like, hey, here's how you need to ride this ride. It's Admiral Akbar explaining to you what you need to do. You go through the line, and you come into the big bay where you're loading. There's a big photos like an X-Wing on the video monitor. You're part of an X-Wing squadron about to go on a raid or over the planet of Jakku against the Empire. You go through that hyperspace jump. The tunnel is now hyperspace streaming at you. TIE fighters, you know, fly overhead. They've got video projections. So they've taken this classic dark ride and they add tons of video projection and music and these laser effects. So like you're flying along and all of a sudden you see lasers are going pew, 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 pew all around you. And it's kind of like really awesome.
That is fantastic. In fact, actually, I'm going to take your enthusiasm and roll straight into my pick. It's a flawed pick. It doesn't do nearly as much as it should for the price that it is. But I've had more fun than I could count playing with my 11-year-old daughter Star Wars Battlefront. It only is, you know, online. You got a little bit of offline stuff. There is no story. It's just, you know, run around and fight on Endor, run around and fight on Hoth, run around and fight on, you know, every place. But the fact is, you're running around and fighting on those places. When you're running on Hoth, you hear the snow crunching beneath your feet, and it is the perfect, you know, the clear blue sky on this crystal, you know, cold Norwegian day. And it's so awesome when you're in the middle of a dogfight air battle, and then it just a little notification comes up saying Slave 1 has just appeared, and you realize that your team or the rebels are in trouble. It's great, man. It was so much fun watching my 11-year-old walking around murdering rebels as Darth Vader in the training exercises.
So yeah, it's gotten kind of beat up review-wise because it doesn't have much of a solo story to it and is essentially a multiplayer game where you have to, you know, really, really grind out what has been described as kind of boring missions to get better power-ups for your multiplayer. But you're saying worth it.
Oh my God! Yes. If you have the means, I highly recommend it. You know, look, don't expect more than a fantastic 20 hours before you get bored of it. But think about it, man. You know, $60 is less than you'd spend to actually go to Disneyland, and I'm gonna say it brings you, you know, 70-80% of the adventure. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
What was it like when Chewbacca hugged you, Brian?
Yeah. Okay, I said 70%.
Oh.
I would like to last minute do a couple plugs because it's really what I am. I don't know if you know this, but my book How to Write a Novella in 24 Hours. It's been like the #1 book on writing on Amazon for like the last week.
Yeah.
Sometimes it tips down to number 2 or 3, but mostly it's been #1.
Congratulations.
Kind of stoked about. And I got a new magic book out, by the way. You can pre-order called Magic and Mischief if you go to andrewmain.com and click on store. You'll find the link through there. But that's not all. We've got a special treat for you listeners here. Mr. Justin Robert Young recorded the first chapter of my novella, Game Night, which we're going to play right as soon as I say it's been weird.
Wait, that wasn't it, though, because Justin didn't make a pick, right?
It's fine.
I haven't said it yet.
My pick. Go ahead and buy it.
What's your pick?
Oh, no, he bowed out. He said,
my pick was Game Night. Go buy Game Night. I love Game Night.
I didn't mean to step over your pick.
No, it was only funny because it was a genuine oversight.
Was a genuine oversight. What's your pick? Go with your pick.
No. I said before that my pick was the perfect thing. Was the Stephen Levy book about the iPod.
See?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I guess we'll talk about it in after things.
Okay, give me a few minutes to make sure I got all.
Yeah, I'm gonna use the restroom.
Yep. All right. Bio break time.
Hey, hold on.
Oh, and I watched Bob and Dave.
Hey, oh my gosh, dude, how great is it? By the way, can I real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to give a high five to Tathion in the chat, who was somebody who I assume saw my tweet and came stumbling in, expecting, you know, scam school idiot Brian, and instead got the full Weird Things experience, and he was even saying like, "Oh wow, this is smart stuff. I didn't expect this," and I'm so proud. I'm so proud that that he joined us. So stick around, man. We're a good group.
Bryce, would you be the one editing together? All right, let me make sure that I get that to you then.
Yeah, can you just let me? What's the title of it again? Because I couldn't find it.
Game Night, or The Perfect Thing.
The Perfect Thing.
The Perfect Thing.
Is that it? Because it's
Levy. Yeah, The Perfect Thing: How the iPod Shuffles Commerce, Culture, and Coolness.
Oh, okay. For some reason, the Google research or the Google search, the Google result said hardware and DIY and then peripherals. So okay, I've got that.
Okay.
The Perfect Thing and space doot and Game Night. That'll just be on.
And I just forwarded to you the Dropbox link for
the audio.
For the audio.
Is that already trimmed? Are we doing that whole thing?
Yeah. No, I put music before and after it and had an intro and an outro. So.
Oh, great. Alrighty. Let me make those notes. Insert Game Night chapter. Email from Justin. Woo! And then that out time. Out around 1:06:35. All right. Hey, you want to look at some titles?
Sure.
See if we got anything good. That's on showbot.tv. We got a couple here. Colonizing Mars with perchlorate eating bacteria. Mars Needs Musks, featuring Elon Musk. Nerds. We can't do Nerds is Cool now. That's another podcast's joke. The Reputation of Webutation. Don't Trust Ai Weiwei and Pew Pew Pew. Some ideas there.
I like Mars Needs Musks.
Yeah, that's clever.
Have we done that before, or is that? I feel like there's so many podcast titles that.
That's true. We could have MuskWeirdThings.com. No, it doesn't seem like it from a cursory glance.
Let's do it.
What's the question?
Does Brian suck?
Yeah. No, it doesn't seem like it from a cursory glance. Well, secretly the answer is yes. He stinks.
All right, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Biddy bop boop boop biddy boop. So, I don't know if we're going to talk about it in After Things or we should save it. I'm surprised that nobody brought up Jessica Jones or Man in the High Castle. Have you watched either of those?
I watched the first episode of Jessica Jones.
I'm hesitant to talk about it.
How much have you seen?
3 episodes.
Okay. I liked episode 1 of Jessica Jones, and
is that as far as you got?
Yeah, that's all I got today. I think I'll actually finish it, unlike Daredevil.
What? You didn't finish Daredevil?
No.
That's interesting.
Daredevil felt really actiony. I don't know. It didn't feel like it was for me.
It was a kind of a bruiser brawler, which is kind of why I liked it, because I believed it. You know what? I'd hate to.
Well, we can do. Let's do Jessica. We'll do that next week, because I figure give a chance to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't seen none of it.
All right, are we good, guys?
Just let me think of a topic.
Sure.
Okay. I got a topic.
Alrighty. Well, take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to After Things, the podcast we do after weird things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hi.
And Brian Brushwood.
Hello, beautiful people. Hey, can we start off? I just want to give a high five to Justin for recommending Is it The Squared Circle? Was that the name of the book?
Yeah, David Shoemaker's The Squared Circle: Life and Death in Professional Wrestling.
Yeah, I'm 2/3 of the way through it. It's read by R.C. Bray, the guy who read the Audible version of The Martian, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. The first third was a lot of old school history that I, to me, it's just name of guy was the first to pioneer this aspect of wrestling that you're familiar with. But then, like in the middle third is all my childhood, and it's like to understand the context of why, Captain Lou was hanging out with Cyndi Lauper and all that stuff. It's great if harrowing stuff.
And man, there's a chapter in there about race and wrestling that I feel like is among some of the best stuff ever written on that sport. And it is, this is a guy who really came to notoriety writing columns on Deadspin.com called Dead Wrestler of the Week.
Wow.
So spoiler alert, if you're not to the part where people are dying and these are all just a series of eulogies, buckle up, because it gets pretty sad as you go in there. But no, it's great.
Justin,
yeah,
what's the latest on your Kickstarter, your project, The Contender?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Andrew, because we have, if you go to the Contender Twitter, you will see boxes rolling off the line here in Texas.
Wait, is that a Photoshop mark I see on the box?
No Photoshop. Although, just to tell a family secret, that was staged because all the boxes had been done, and by the time that I asked the guy to take pictures of them, so they did roll off that line.
Wow, what a favor that he did, because that's so important to tell the full story, though. But it looks amazing.
No, he definitely went above and beyond. But yeah, you can see the boxes rolling off there. If everything goes according to plan, which, man, I'll tell you what, doing this has so much given me, not to say that I was ever really so much of this guy before, but if there was any element of me, of the like, why can't I have it now? They promised it was supposed to be released in March, and now it's June. Why can't I have the thing I wanted? It has been scrubbed out of me that as long as people are being responsible and letting that projections, may or may not happen, it is hard. And keeping those promises are difficult and expensive at times.
I wish we could have had a documentary crew following this through. That would have made I think we're going to be seeing some cool documentaries coming out like we did about the startups, of the 90s and early aughts and all that, about, following the Kickstarters, following these companies and seeing what happens. And, trying to relay to like my mom what you've been going through and other people like what's going through. I said, yes, it's this, they start off with, you look at the numbers, you look at the table, you look at a timeline, and if everybody holds to their word, you can do this.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be off. They can be the most sincere, but from your printer to the shipper or somebody off, and you have to account for that. But if you've never done it, how do you do that?
Well, and that's the thing is, right, you think you're giving a generous estimate for every phase of the entire thing, but you realize that any mistakes ratchet forward. It's that someone just has to be one day late, and it shifts everybody else farther and farther back. I just went through the same thing with the release of the Arcana artifact and the Arcana decks. It absolutely slayed me that we ended up 3 weeks, 4 weeks behind schedule on that. But you put how long you think it has to be, and then you double it, and then you double it one more time, and that's realistically when it'll happen.
And it's very, very hard when you have people, and the three of us very much fit into this category, that are used to kind of controlling their own domain. You're used to being able to say, there's a reason why we've built studios in our houses and apartments, right? Because we want to be able to create a good looking product for which we can control, and we don't have to rent time, and we don't have to deal with the overhead of a network, and we don't have to deal with people taking a cut. We are all very much do-it-yourself people, and taking advantage of all the abilities that are gifted to us now in this brilliant modern age. However, man, is it frustrating when you have to go ahead and deal with everybody for whom you are a frustration, because you're saying, when things are out of their hands, it's not for lack of an ability, or that they're often late on stuff, or things are hard to do, and yet you have to do this weird dance where, for all of us, every element of our partnerships that we've had, for the Contender, there's always a point where you have to be kind of firm but fair in every element. And that's from our, from John and Megan Fawn, who we work with, Guts and Glory for the design stuff. They're people that they work in their design company amongst all of us, each other. This is, for our printing partners and everything, everyone's got to be holding them accountable, and yet understanding that at times there's just going to be a delay, and then you don't want to cross that line of like, okay, so there's a delay, there's a problem, somebody didn't get something done that they promised that they were going to get done. What is the line between, hey, we got to make sure this doesn't happen again, and you're damaging the relationship? Like, how hard do you push on that? How hard do you make and that's
that's a two-way
another
street
element.
too. That's a two-way street, because not only do you have to do that with your vendors, say, no, I made a promise and this has to go out in time. I need you to personally be there when that pallet arrives and push it in. And, of course, damaging that relationship. But you're also caught in the middle because you have a relationship with your audience, and they will understand. You can bring them up to speed and show them pictures and say, like, here's where we're at. We're telling you every step of the way. And as long as it'll be there by Christmas, they'll be happy. Or as long as they're informed of the process, they'll be happy. As long as, they see the steps along the way, they can be happy. But also you're cashing in, your good credit. Going back to what we talked about in Weird Things, that's your personal capital that's being withered away.
I think that underlines a very important idea, and that is you want to be transparent. You want to be on the surface as much as you can, and that's hard for some people because, I'll respond to email from people or whatever. People will say on Twitter, like, hey, can I ask you a question? And as long as I'm not too weirded out, I'm like, yeah, sure, email me. And then I'll respond. I'll get like, hey, thanks, whoever responded. I'm like, no, it's
dude, and it drives me nuts too, because people on the YouTube channel always say, hey, Scam School, why don't you do this for a change, you jerk? And then I'll respond like, well, we didn't do it for this reason. Also, my name is Brian. And then the response is invariably like, oh, haha, I was making a joke. I was just testing to see if it was really you. And
yeah,
it's like,
but I mean, and I get, I have like these book plates, that I offered for my Public Enemy Zero. I shipped those out. I was at the post office at 12 o'clock at night, whatever, to go ship that out, because it's shipped out. Because it's, for something like that, it's not practical for me to go. I got a lot of unemployed magician friends, I could go do stuff, but like that, I'm gonna do it. It's me doing it, and I don't try to hide and say, well, I'm gonna have my assistant do this or my whatever, do that. No, I have no interest in pretending that I'm bigger or whatever than I am. I just don't, and that means dumb mistakes are going to be my own. I'd much rather be transparent. And part of it though gets into this thing where, Brian, you dealt with this, I'm dealing with this, and Justin's getting into this. Is that how much do you promote your stuff? How much are you out there talking about what you've got to do? And when you're trying to sell something, how do you balance that? How do you balance your social media between, hey, let me show you this genuine fun things that I'm doing and I'm up to, and oh, by the way, I've got this thing I'm trying to sell, and make it very clear that, like, if you just like me because you like me, that's great. If you don't want to buy anything I ever produce, that's fine. Don't feel like when I'm pushing something or whatever.
But that's tough, because part of the reason people follow you is because they want to follow your genuine story. And oftentimes what you're most excited about, there are times you would be doing a considerable disservice to your fans to not mention the fact that the new Jessica Blackwood novel's out, or that you wrote an amazing novella, in 24 hours.
But that's part of your, all the work that goes into that happens before you plug something. Right. And you building up a genuine relationship with your audience, and to the point where they know it, I've got, I got into this, not an argument, but a conversation that is not quite appropriate for this show, but about voting, right? And because of my steadfast belief that you are totally cool if you don't want to vote. In fact, you're cooler than people that pressure other people into voting because you need to do it. And part of what my larger point with that is that if you are really genuinely enamored with and want to make progress on whatever your cause is, all that work that needs to happen is not election day, right? Like everything that you want to do to advance your cause happens before. Every other day is more valuable to that cause than election day for you to go ahead and spread the word and become an important part of whatever you want, okay? This is just like that. You need to have a understanding with your audience that you are a certain kind of person, that you are ambitious, that you care about stuff, that you're not going to rip them off, that this is something that they might be qualified to care about, and then you can plug it because they've been on this journey with you, right? But where people get, I think, caught up is when it's like, oh no, there's zero communication, and then a plug, right? And every time you hear from somebody, it's a plug. And I think that ultimately the product is what people care about, because there's a lot of comedians that only, or actors that only tweet whenever they have a show or a movie or something out, and we don't begrudge them because we like their shows and movies.
Because we perceive it as content. Like when Dan Carlin tweets out new Hardcore History episode out, number of people upset by that plug, that call to action is exactly donut, because we only get them 3 or 4 times a year, and when they do, it's like Christmas.
But they're also, they're quote gifts too, though, because they're free.
Yeah. But even if they were, even if he were to charge, I mean, I'm sure he sees a surge in sales as a result. But let's say they were 99 cents and we only got them 3 times a year. If we were just as excited, like, if let's say you only tweeted whenever you had a new ebook out, I think we would be just as excited for that, whether we were paying for it or not.
I think it depends on the audience. I think that's part of it too. Is you build audiences and people come to you from different places. I have new followers from India because Don't Trust Andrew Mayne is airing on like History 18 there. So that's interesting now as I'm getting people. This is this new thing for them, and then you write books too. I'm like, well. Yeah, aren't you the largest English-speaking country in the world? Maybe. And that is, but that's I think it's helpful to hear you guys explain that, and to talk about like how do you find that balance. And one of the things that when I was at Disneyland, I shared so many photos and stuff I was doing it because one, it was cool, and I'm always fearful of oversharing. But the other part is like, it's just I want people to know that like I had a lot of stuff coming out, this last couple of months because I've just been in this create space tear, and I've had a couple side projects that all of a sudden materialized all at once. I'm like, man, I can't have everything be, hey, buy this, buy this, buy this.
And I find myself understand if you can't provide content in your social feeds, and I think most of us are Twitter centric because it appeals to our busy schedules and the fact that we could just fire something off. You can provide value as a content curator, which means it's almost kind of like a job to just go through the blogs, the usual suspects, and see if there's something that leaps out at you, kind of like you do, Andrew, for the weird list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that because that's just a fun way to share it. And in the weird list, the people respond to that certainly. Like our open rate on the weird list is 50%, which is really, really high. But on Twitter, like I love Twitter. As I get people, I love Twitter because I find it to be far more conversational. It is far easier for anybody to dip into that conversation to say, hey, look, he just said this. Let me respond to that. I don't have to worry that, everybody who follows me has the opportunity to see my post versus Facebook where they have to specifically say, show me all their posts, whatever. Comment threads, things like that. I just find Twitter is I love it. And I respond to like 99% of my @replies because it's not that hard to do. And it's become, it's a very even platform in that regard.
So I think that there is something to be said though, that like, there's different playbooks for everything, and really the point is to yourself be true, whoever you are. If you are not a super talkative person, and you are not a somebody who thirsts for that kind of engagement, there's plenty of other ways that you can engage with people. I think, obviously, Brian and I certainly, have kind of made this sort of a monastic commitment to sharing every detail of our lives, whether or not people want to hear it. If you look at like some of the content on the albums and everything.
Oh, dude, it's I mean that is our going to confessional. It's like everything we do that's embarrassing or shameful, we know that we're going to have an accounting for because we'll have to share it with the world.
But I mean, that's not everybody, and everybody isn't, someone where it's like I think we all three of us can put out 80% other content, and 20% of the other of that can be either directly or indirectly a plug for something that we make money on, right? But that's also a kind of ever shifting goalpost, because you don't quite know. These days it's like there's so much kind of microtransactionally that it's like when I tweeted last week that like my mom supported my Patreon. And so now she's giving me $3 a week again. And the last time she gave me $3 a week, I had to clean the bathroom in my room. So like, is that me plugging my Patreon? Is that me bringing awareness to people that I have a Patreon and people can support it? Maybe, there was somebody that pottied decided to ask me what my Patreon URL was, but it's like, or is that a funny tweet? Like that, those lines are so blurred now, where it's like, if I say, hey, I'm stressed out and I want to fall over with excitement because people are going to actually get to play the full 500 card deck of the Contender next week or the week after. Like, is that me plugging that at thecontender.us you can pre-order or buy this game, or that it's shipping now? Yeah. Is it true? Yeah. But only the context for that.
What does the government say about that, Justin?
I'll save that for Tuesday. I want John Stossel on the Weird Things podcast. You denied me. I mean, it's so hard. It's different, and people, the more that you give of yourself, whatever yourself is, the more that you give people a roadmap, the more they'll follow it.
Yeah, and I think there's just sort of an honesty. It's one of those. It comes through in all of your tweets and all of your posts when your true interest is figuring out what's in it for them. If that guides your writing, then people will not mind that along the way they acknowledge like, oh yeah, this is a way to support this person and allow them to make money.
Well, and there's parts of it for me where it's like, I think we all know people that are just salesmen, right? That are just people that are constantly thinking, how can I be smart at engaging the audience, right? And if it's smart or funny or interesting, then like, and you still know, oh, he's wants me to get into this funnel that at the end gives up money. Like you still kind of have an element of like, hey, that's really rad. Like, because we know it. We know who he is. Like I would rather have an honest person who is like, I want to sell stuff, than somebody that it feels like, oh no, I'm your friend and here's a thing I want to give you that's really got strings on it.
And I think that you can wear different hats. When I get a scam stuff email, I know I'm getting I'm getting this email because I know that Brian's got really cool stuff and I want him to tell me about this cool thing. When I watch Night Attack, that's a different thing. I know that, oh, okay, I know if they're going to push something, it's going to be funny or for a purpose or whatever. I'll tell you what gets to me a little bit though is that like I don't spend a lot of time in Facebook, but I've had a couple people like, oh yeah, I'm on Facebook, and I follow them on Facebook, and then I see some kind of interesting post and a reply, and I see they're not active there, and then I realize, oh, this is all pushed from Twitter. And it's like, oh, you're not even here. You're just pushing your stuff here because you want us to be aware of you, but you're not responding to people in the space, which, and I try to be conscious, like, when am I doing that? And I know people who are kind of sincere people, but it's like, no, you're kind of giving a middle finger to people when you just push these things through every single platform and you don't pay attention to what's going on, because it becomes this,
Oh man. I had to learn that the hard way, because there's a different way to act on Facebook than acting on Twitter. And I once had my Twitter and my Facebook connected, and boy, did it annoy everybody on Facebook that I was tweeting these like tiny little missives, or many times 3 or 4 of them in a row, and it was just dominating their news feed. It is it's a different tribe, man. It's a different language spoken, and you got to figure out what it is.
Yeah,
and I know people. I see people who are like in entertainment or getting involved there, and you inevitably have they sit you down with whatever network or studio or publisher or whatever, and you meet with 2 women who are going to be in their mid-20s, who just go to all the seminars, and they're going to tell you about how you need to be super active and what you need to do and how you can do this stuff, and most of the advice is good advice. But also people all of a sudden feel like, man, I got to catch up. I got to go do this. And often they make some bad mistakes that they don't realize, that are damaging later on, rather than taking, it's taken me forever to figure out where am I comfortable on Twitter. And what's funny is, like, I have discussions with people who are like, people don't get sarcasm on the internet. I'm like, I've maybe had 1 tweet that I ever felt, or 2 tweets that I ever felt that I had to explain, but I didn't bother explaining. It's because I know I'm shouting to a room, and I've got to play towards all sides of it.
I worry less about that. The times I've been dinged on sarcasm not translating on the internet are when somebody has tried to be funny, but just flatly written an insult to me. And I've written semi-defensively, and it has caused a moment that I wish I could get in a time machine and handle another way. So I think it's less on your end, and more on, or at least in my case, in the reading of other people's posts.
But that also goes back to that thing you were saying before, where someone just says, "Hey, you're fat and dumb," and then you're like, "Whoa, why'd you call me that?" And they're like, LOL, you caught my joke. Like,
yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay, was it?
I'm an extremely sarcastic person in person. I mean, I'm very, very, very.
Really?
No, Brian, I actually am. It may be hard to know, but yeah, in a way that, like, I don't even have to use the tone to be sarcastic, believe it or not. So for me, there's a way I talk on Twitter, and the way I talk on Twitter is the idea that if somebody's kind of squinting and sort of half reads this, they're still going to understand or get the context of it. And I'll rewrite stuff that'll be like, oh, I can see how somebody will misinterpret that. And when you've got hundreds of thousands of people who can potentially see what you're saying, you want to be careful. But I don't feel like I'm censoring myself. I just understand that, if I'm going to go walk in and do a magic show and I see a 5-year-old there and I see a bunch of hipsters there and I see an old lady there, I'm going to play to everybody.
Yeah. So is there somebody that you can think of that that really knows how to play? Because I'll admit, out of all the social networks, Facebook is the most challenging for me, because there's such a expectation of interactivity, but also you have the most present of gatekeepers between you and your own freaking audience. Is there something what do you guys know about success on Facebook that I could learn from? Because right now the only thing I know is post native videos on Facebook. They love the hell out of them because they're trying to take on YouTube. And out of everything I've done in the last 4 months, the instantly freeze a beer video we posted natively, and boom, no asking for a boost post, just all of a sudden hey, 11,000 people of the 30,000 people saw it instantly.
Yeah, I found that on your advice, I did that. I flipped through the pages of my book, Magic and Mischief, available at andrewmain.com. Click on shop. I flipped through the pages of the book, and Facebook, and immediately got 6,000 views, whatever 6,000 views really mean.
Well, and of course, yeah, that is the problem, is that 6,000 views is totally bogus because it counts as a view. Just then, that was a view, even though there was no audio and we only got 4 seconds into the video on the live feed. That's a view.
And I'm sorry, and I meant the post got that, but yeah, there was 3,000 actual views, which meant 2 seconds or more were, But yes, I totally believe that they're pushing this in front of a lot of people. I don't know. like, I go to the Magic Castle, member of the Magic Castle, and I go to this Friday lunch, and then a lot of times the topic is whatever is being discussed on the Magic Castle Facebook page, and people are like, oh, what do you think of this? I said, I don't go. Like, what do you mean? Like, every time I hear it come up, it's because there's a controversy. There's some argument or something that somebody said this and somebody did that. I said, there is no time in my life for that, number one. I don't have the time for that. Two, this is a negative thing. This is not the people who are most present are the most angry, and I find that in just about any place.
Plus, also,
why would I be there?
I mean, you're almost guaranteed that it's exactly 4 people involved in this whole thing.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, I mean, it's funny because like I know a magician who got upset with another one of these magic discussion boards who's decided to start his own. I'm like, you're gonna have your flavor of problems, and I see no value in that at all because it's everybody with megaphones and nobody listening.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a questionable element of like, and you see this with Reddit. I'll read regularly their wrestling forum, their most popular wrestling forum, and their most popular Hearthstone forum, and it's like you just start to see the cycle of like popular thought upvoted, right? Whatever the popular thought of the moment is, and then reaction to popular thought. That gets upvoted or downvoted, or it's upvoted because they're getting downvoted. Then there's the post about, hey, how everybody is all circle jaying, right? And then it's like, oh, that gets upvoted, but then it gets downvoted because no, but we're really right, and there we go. Like it is just like this back and forth. It could be 40-60 opinion split, and everyone just keeps yelling. You find whatever the common denominator arguments are that are as diametrically opposed as possible, and you just kind of bounce it back and forth, and that's online discussion. But maybe that's all discussion, and we just focus on our own granular little element of it, and that's why we think that it can be more complex.
I think that somebody has mentioned the whole idea of the hive mind, and I avoid the comments in a lot of places because one is you kind of sometimes don't want to know who else is reading this, and you might agree on some things and disagree on other things, and then you see things like, all too many times I'll see somebody point out a cogent, interesting counterpoint and just watch it get downvoted
just
because
buried. Yeah,
everybody there has this alternate political or philosophical point of view or whatever, and they don't want to hear that. They don't want to know that, and we're big believers here that our mantra, guys, for all listeners out there is, you need to be able to intelligently articulate an alternate point of view to the point that those other people would say, yes, that accurately reflects what I think.
The ideological Turing test is the greatest philosophical construct I've run across in the last 10 years.
I hate that term for it, though.
Why? Why? No, I love it. The moment I read it, I instantly got it. I know what a Turing test is, and an ideological Turing test is perfect. It's perfect.
You've got 2 big words in there. It's like trying to explain like type 1 and type 2 errors. It's like
well, okay, yeah, that was a little more challenging. But unlike type 1 and type 2 errors, the nature of it is inherent in the title. I like ideological Turing test. Yeah. But I've tried to.
I hate it, and I think that you should stop downvoting me. No, I think the greatest. If I could have if I had my druthers, I would love to have either like internet or television series where you get some of the loudest mouthpieces in our popular culture and put them in a debate against people that would consider themselves on the other side of an argument, but they had to win a debate, and maybe you had like charity money or something tied to it, arguing the other side. I would love to see all that charisma, understand that there is a wide variety of thought in the world.
I agree, and the problem is that one of the reasons why kind of like we talk about like we don't trust people who go to rallies, or champion people they believe, because to be part of that, you do not want you have to run those organizations, to run that sort of thing. You have to keep your group from being exposed to alternate points of view. You don't want them being exposed to these things because, one, you're letting them use their cognitive capacity, and you're running the risk of well, maybe we're going to lose people here. It's more advantageous to say, no, don't consider it. It's stupid. We figured it out.
Right.
To encourage people to have an alternate point of view.
Basically, once there's a profit motive, when the more polarized there are, the less listening they do, the more money your entity makes. That opens the doors to a lot of problem.
Yeah, but I would love, like you said, John, that would be great. That'd be absolutely great. And that's one of the things. Like I've always been, I'm in any organization. Why I've had problems with just like organized skepticism is our ability to apply that skepticism to ourselves is extremely problematic. I could find numerous examples of how we don't do this, and then you bring that up like, yeah, but we've got a greater cause here. No, our cause is truth. Or truth. Truth is our ultimate cause, and when we say we're going to sacrifice that, or that, or we talk like maybe we need to be more persuasive and appeal to people's emotions more than anything else, if you're sacrificing truth to do that, you lost. You help the other side win their battle.
And I totally lost my train of thought, but I think there's absolutely there's such a need for that.
You guys want to swerve into picks real quick?
I just real quick on the subject of Kickstarter. I got something in the mail the other day, and I burst out laughing uncontrollably. I had a fit in my car because I opened up an envelope, and there I found.
Oh my God! I was wondering where my coin is. I saw that they're selling it on Amazon, and I was like, didn't I give those assholes money like 3 years ago?
It was. When did they first? The coin was first 2013, so it's 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago. But still.
Two iPhones ago.
Oh, my God.
And so finally I got my coin.
Just in time for chip and pin technology to
I know. Now my cards are chip and pin. I'm like, I don't know where I'll be able to use this now.
Yeah. Man, that's amazing. I look forward to mine as well. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe at some point. And maybe I'll enjoy it on my generation ship.
Yeah,
I hand it to my son and his daughter.
In my mind, I would love for Justin to be defensive, like, "Hey guys, they worked really hard on that, and there were production capabilities that there are unforeseen circumstances."
There is that is my greatest. I have no sympathy, like considering. That like they have, and I get why. I understand the decisions they made, but at some point they decided, hey, look, we are going to continue to roll on as a business before we take care of the people that had faith in us first, and that to me is that is a fundamental problem. And listen, we're in that situation now. We could turn on our Amazon page right now, and we could sell it, or we could say, hey, Black Friday. The Contenders now on sale for cheaper than it would be otherwise, right? Or cheaper than they sold it on Kickstarter. We could. That's a thing we could do if we wanted to prioritize our future business over the people that gave us money early. We are not going to do that because it's a terrible thing to do, and I don't want to coin this thing.
There's this week there was news about, remember the Zano or the Zano little mini drone?
No, I don't. Oh, wait, like a micro drone or something?
Yeah, it was a micro drone that was like, I remember when I saw this thing on Kickstarter, I'm like, oh, this looks really cool that it can follow you around and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's only like $250. I'm like, I don't trust this. They're not going to deliver this. This ain't going to happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and guess what? It's like, you know what? Like this thing kind of like, I believe like, a lot of these Kickstarters are started by people who've got some engineering background and are really good at, we can put together a prototype, have zero experience in scaling, two, people.
These guys can't be as bad as the Solar Roadways people, right?
I think the Solar Roadways...
They were selling mugs. They were selling mugs with an idea in them. Fill your mug with this hot idea we're pouring for you.
Fair enough.
So... My argument with the Solar Roadways people is they just didn't know any better, technically speaking. It's just like, well, why don't we do? Oh, listen, water's got hydrogen. That's the people who were sending me the Solar Roadways thing. I'm like, oh God, do I? So I think that anyhow. I think that this thing's hard. Kickstarter's hard, and
Oh, it's rough, and you know there are two things that I was very excited about that I backed recently. One was like the ultimate travel jacket, which I'm going to get probably a solid 6 months after I stop professionally traveling, and these Cocoon headphones that are really really great for sleeping on planes as soon as I stop flying on planes all the time. But I got an email from the Cocoon, which you know all the great stages of Kickstarter. Have an idea, create a video, list it on Kickstarter, get funded, send your first enthusiastic production delay, send your second enthusiastic production delay, bump your, it's like, and so we got the email for everybody who backed the Cocoon project that like, hey, guess what? We really want to make it as great as it can be. And it turns out we figured out a lot about how to make it, but we got to bump this back until another. And it's like, man, you look at everything they're doing, you look at their offices, you look at like, oh, wow, it's a lot of, here's business 101. Delays aren't just delays. Delays are, you got to pay everybody's salary. You got to pay that rent on the building. You got to pay for, everything that you thought was going to cost X amount of money now might cost more. It's insane. And now it's like, all right, well, hopefully on the other end, the travel jacket, they were upfront and they're like, hey, good. Guess what? We're a huge success. We are going out of pocket to start investing in this stuff right now to get the production line moving before our Kickstarter ends. So we're going to float money to do it. And it's like, I look at that and I'm like, okay, these guys understand how to get a product from point A to point B. I look at the Cocoon thing and it's like, now you're worrying about the noise canceling app or whatever? Like, that should have been something that could have all been done before you even listed this Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I remember I'm looking through my Kickstarter page of all the stuff that is yet to materialize. Remember the Air VR, the basically the VR glasses for the iPhone.
Oh wow, like a Google Cardboard kind of thing.
Yeah, there it is. So I'm looking at that, and that was estimated delivery December last year.
Oh wow.
But there's an update. They say, hey, we're starting to ship. We've got our final beta.
Well, you
from
realize,
July.
What's funny is now we're seeing the invention of financial vehicles to circumvent federal restrictions. There's a lot of speculative, and whether this is good or bad depends a little bit on your political philosophy. But back after the great crash, they instituted these things saying like only qualified investors, people who have $250,000 to blow at a drop, are allowed to invest in non-accredited investments. And now what they've done is they've created these virtual investment vehicles that allow everyone to kick in a few bucks and become kind of a virtually accredited investor.
Didn't the SEC just rule on that?
I don't know. Did they say good or not good?
No, I think or somebody was just telling me that you don't, that they have relaxed the rules on like the $1 million in the bank thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it looks like we're seeing
new SEC rules set limits on crowdfunding investments.
See, that's October. That's 2 weeks ago. Interesting. Well, hey, real quick, regarding picks, did I make my pick last week, How to Fly a Horse? Did I already say that one?
You picked that before, but you
I did it like, months ago, but I definitely want to double down on it again. I am so surprised at how much more I got out of it on my second listening of it. It was so good, I started reaching out to other author friends of mine, just begging them to, I bought a couple of copies for friends. It's amazing. It's so quotable. It is... it's called How to Fly a Horse, The Secret History of Creation, Invention, and Discovery by Kevin Ashton, who's an Austin resident as well. The audiobook is read by the author. He's got this rich British voice, and it's filled with so much science, so much interesting analysis of the evolution of creativity. It's so good. It may be... I will say right now, you know how much I love The Rational Optimist and Abundance. I put it right up there. It's if you're a creative person, if you're somebody looking to figure out how to learn more about the world and develop more ideas. It's a very, very practical guide of saying, guess what? Creativity is very, very boring. It's a matter of just doing and reiterating or iteration. It's amazing.
I'm curious to read that, because I know that that's sort of like a thing that Steve Johnson's talked about, I think, in his book The History of Everything, and then Matt Ridley talks about the evolution of everything. And I don't know enough, but I know that I have seen a meta problem with some of the examples brought up, where there are certain things which a certain stage which you're just going to have numerous iterations, but then you're going to have people who are going to think very, very long about a certain solution before. Because we have this, like, the inevitability. We get, like, certain things are inevitable, but there's a certain point where there's so many layers of complexity. You need to have somebody spend 10 years or 10 years trying to solve this problem.
Well, the main thesis of the book is sort of a rejection of the Mozart hypothesis. There was some biography of Mozart that falsely quoted him as saying, I just think about music for a really long time, and then I sit down and boom, it all comes out fully formed. And he never said that. That never happened. If you look at his work, it's highly iterative. And he goes on to, like he points out Kandinsky, if you look at painting with white border, there's a couple of versions of it, and in the earlier versions of it, they've now used X-rays to go down and see the 6 or 7 layers that have been painted over as he reworked it, and he practiced making this one painting, and then they also ran X-rays on his final version, and on his final version, he never goes back, he never changes his stroke. It's clear the entire thing is practiced and rehearsed to where he was able to do it on this one sheet one time, because he had done it, or versions of it, a million times before, and he already knew in advance what he was going to do. He doesn't overstate it, but I don't know. Read it. I think you guys will like it quite a bit.
How to Fly a Horse.
How to Fly a Horse.
Yeah, I keep hovering over it, and I read the description, some of the stuff, and then I kind of, for some reason, I was kind of like, I don't know,
I'll give you. We'll make it a $5 bet. If you don't like it, I'll give you $5.
Ooh.
Yeah, $5 whole dollars.
My pick is $5. It's a bill. You has Abraham Lincoln on it. Use it for almost any.
Well, let me quickly, because one of the things I've heard is and again, not having read the book, like with the Wright brothers and the airplane, is you talk about all these other people were building the airplane, but the Wright brothers are the ones that had to stop and go build their own wind tunnels because they realized that all of the math was wrong and nobody was going to fly until they solved those problems, and it gets.
Right, correct. And then, he's also got a great section on the nature of writer's block, and he does a lot of really good quotes from Woody Allen, who says, there's no such thing as writer's block. There's only the inability to write stuff that you like. And if you hit that block and you can't write stuff you like, well, then the obvious answer is write stuff you don't like. Write stuff that you hate and get started, and then make it an iterative process to turn it into something good.
Okay. Cool.
What about you guys? Oh, you already said yours, right, Justin?
Sure. I don't remember, but I'm sure it was awesome.
I can do more plugs of my own
bills?
stuff. And
Oh,
take
$5
away your
bills.
pick.
That's what you said.
$5 bills.
I remember.
Number one pick. Everybody today.
Sorry.
Get him at the Fed.
Yeah, you want to know what? I have a plug. I don't know what everybody's doing on Thanksgiving, but me and my lovely wife, Ashley Paramore, are going to be hanging out with anybody who wants to on Twitch. We're doing a big 8-hour live stream where we are going to cook a full Thanksgiving dinner. It's going to be super fun. We had the wedding this year, so we saw everybody in our family and went east a bunch of times. So we just decided to skip Thanksgiving and Christmas on the East Coast, which is a first for us. But what we wanted to do was bring that celebration to share it with everybody on the internet. So check it out. It'll be on my channel. I'll host it there, twitch.tv/Jurystone, and on her channel, of course, twitch.tv/FakeGamerGirl.
My pick is I just watched this movie again. I watched, Lawrence of Arabia, which I love to go watch every year, and, watch it 20-minute installments, spread across several nights. Lawrence of Arabia is great. It's on Netflix. And that got me thinking about desert movies and stuff. And so I watched Flight of the Phoenix. the original Flight of the Phoenix, which, if you're not familiar with the film, it was remade with Dennis Quaid, and I don't think the new version was as good or compelling as the original, which is not always the case. Like, I thought that 610 to Yuma, the new version, is really, really compelling, whatever. But anyhow, the original Flight of the Phoenix, 1965 film, and it stars James Stewart, Ernest Borgnine, and you get a bunch of other, Richard Attenborough is basically the co-star of it, and this was directed by Robert Aldrich, who also directed such films as The Dirty Dozen and some really cool kind of war movies. But
this is where they gotta build a plane out of pieces of another broken plane.
So what happens is oil workers are middle of the desert, Saudi Arabia, Iraq area, whatever, trying to leave, and they get caught in a windstorm and they crash in the middle of the desert. And the odds of survival are slim and none. And the only person on there who has a plan is this German who says, well, we can take this plane, take our crashed plane, and make a new plane and take off from there. And it's a tale of survival and ingenuity and trying to, survive. So it's kind of neat. It's a very kind of contained story. And you look at, too, like movies back then, I would say that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they used to be much more ensemble-based. And there was a really good Freakonomics podcast which talked about suspense and when, and how reversals, or excuse me, what they would call twists and stuff, and how people can sometimes be conditioned to predict things. And they do it. They make a rather dismissive statement that, like, oh, when superheroes fight, they're cliched now, or blah blah blah. And there's no surprise. And I'd argue, like, well, it's not so much the surprise isn't who wins, it's how they win. And that's a thing I think that's misunderstood about a lot of genres, is that people go, well, we always know who wins. Yeah, but it's not about who wins, it's how they get there. There's always one of two consequent. Anyhow, I digress. Point is, it's a interesting ensemble piece, and it's sort of a really neat classic story of survival and aircraft engineering.
Right on.
Still sticking to $5.
$5 foot long. It's another thing you can buy with $5.
Gentlemen, anything else?
No, it's been after.
It has been after.
Good show.
Man, I cannot wait until Michael Kent publishes this article. He sent me a early draft of this article he's posting in MUM magazine about the nature of working in the college market. And it's so good. Like, the opening paragraph is, I'm typing this after I just packed up my show at blank blank community college. There was no stage, so I worked on the floor. It was under fluorescent lights, and 12 people showed up. And he goes on to talk about, the reality of working in the college market, and what magicians think it is, and the fact that magic is, or that the college market is currently saturated with magicians. And, it's like, it's a good gig, and, blah, blah, blah. Let's, there are reasons to get into it, but also here's the reality of it.
Dude, I feel like part of the reason why we have bonded in the professional sense over the past couple of years is because it's like that college market, man, is so similar to the corporate entertainment.
Oh yeah, sure.
I mean, it is all just like one person spending not their own money under the idea that they will be entertaining other people. Right. Like, and there's different ways for which you get there, but ultimately that is the, that's the thing. And really all that's different is that my gig was probably sweeter because, like, on the other end of a corporate team building thing, they don't have to work. On the other end of a college gig, it's like all the things that you would is attractive to college life, like getting drunk and being on drugs,
taking the entertainment out, like, oh man, we gotta go eat, oh my god, that's the reason I booked you, is so that we could go to Chili's afterwards. And it's like, and you're like, let's do that. That's something really appealing to me as a 40-year-old man.
Oh man, doing the magic lecture circuit, you get these people like, and you can stay at my house, and it's like, oh yeah,
oh, that's the worst.
I want to go sleep in my car. Instead of
who said it.
What's that?
When we were booking the magic lectures, that was just like oh God, I wish I could give him credit. Although it's probably better because they had some very negative things to say about certain people that booked a lot of lectures that they went on. But like, it was just like listen, here are the people that are terrible and will like have you sleep at their house and then keep you up until 4 o'clock in the morning, talking about their magic books. And it just fight for the hotel every time. Every time you get booked, you say, okay, that's great. Also, it's going to be X amount more on top of what the rate is for the hotel. And that's just a non-negotiable element to all of these negotiations.
And that's not to say that they're not delightful, hardworking individuals who derive a lot of personal benefit out of doing genuine good for their Magic communities. However, when you've traveled all day and you've saved up all of your energy to put on stage, there's nothing left in the tank, and it's so taxing. Just taxing.
And some people love it. Like I've met some people for whom that kind of late night, up all night magic sessioning thing is their jam, man. That's what they are into. I don't think that you would consider the three of us to be those people.
Yeah. All right. Man, Justin, you got a busy night tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to do a wrestling live stream and then jury after that. So a lot of me. I'm going to eat some food now, and then I'll be right back here on the live stream coming right up.
Awesome.
Well, goodbye, everybody, then. Let's say
Bryce, do you get the file for game night?
yes, Justin sent it to me during the break. So
Of course you did. He's a good guy. Good guy, that Justin.
Yeah.
bye, guys.
Bye.